Latin America, and the Caribbean. Daily resort fees are required. Book now at dreamvacationweek.com.
Get ready, football fans. The Los Angeles Rams are back, and they're hungrier than ever in the City of Angels, where stars shine bright. A new chapter unfolds on the gridiron. Buckle up, because the Rams are about to electrify the NFL. All Los Angeles Rams games can be heard right here on KSHP, AM 1400 and 107.1 FM. Los Angeles Rams football, sponsored by Steiner's Pub, a true Nevada-style pub.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Pushing the Limits radio talk show podcast with your host, Leonard Cardinale. And you may be like, where's Brian today? Brian Shapiro was called last minute by, I believe, Channel 13 to participate in a charity golf tournament. So he is out working for charity today. And so as a result of that, you get me. A little bit of format. We're going to go over some news. Then I'm going to play some clips for you. At some point on the other side of that, we will have, we'll take a break. Numchuck will reset. And we'll be taking your calls, but I will let you know so you're not stuck on hold for a long period of time when we'll be taking calls. Today is Monday, and there was quite a bit of news. Let's start with the top of the news. Today, the Supreme Court signaled that it will give Trump more control of the government. What does that mean? So, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter was nominated in 2018 as the head of the FTC by Trump. And she was fired March 18th of 2025 this year because she didn't fit the narrative or the values of the Trump administration. So she filed a lawsuit. And that lawsuit, she was successful. It went up the chain, and it ended up at the Supreme Court. And they are now hearing arguments on that. Just so you know, this is a landmark decision because it would affect pretty much every federal agency that we have. Federal agencies are designated by Congress, and they are independent of the president and the executive power, and it's a sort of a check and balance. So the FTC, as you know, is involved in this lawsuit. It could affect the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, which if you're familiar with it, and you're in a union, you have a union contract. So you can file a grievance, you can go to arbitration. However, if you work for the federal government, you don't go in front of an arbitrator unless it's extended. You complain to the National Labor Relations Board. The EEOC, we all know what the EEOC is. That is, where you file discrimination complaints, retaliation complaints, harassment for being a minority, or for being in one of 7 or 8 classes that cannot be discriminated against. Department of Labor, which is kind of the umbrella over the National Labor Relations Board, and here's complaints on all kinds of labor issues, especially large scale, federal. OSHA, which is your safety agency and protects workers from everything from construction to working in a building that's dangerous to having a dangerous job by nature. The SEC, which regulates your securities and makes sure that there's no insider trading, which we all know is a real problem. In fact, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, Lauren Boebert filed a petition to make it that legislators would not be able to trade stocks anymore. I don't see that really going anywhere, but I think that it was a good intent to show that there's a lot of inside ball, right? Congressmen, senators, all politicians, they meet with lobbyists, which I was a lobbyist here in Nevada. I was a paid and a non-paid lobbyist for several years, so I'm quite familiar with it. These independent agencies exist as checks and balances to the presidency. The FTC was created in 1914 under President Woodrow Wilson. And as it was created by Congress as part of the efforts to regulate big business and monopolies. And as you know, once you create a monopoly, they can charge whatever they want, and there's no regulations. And deregulation was a big problem back in those days. So if President Trump would be able to get control of these agencies, he could determine who was investigated, he could determine who was pardoned, he could determine who runs the agencies, who's placed on the board. And so removing checks and balances, giving him a great amount of power. So clearly, I disagree with this, but when they say the Supreme Court signaled that they may agree with Trump, what they're talking about is when the lawsuit was filed, there was a stay placed on the lawsuit, which means that everything stays the same usually until it gets to court and it gets in front of judges and it goes through the appeals process. But during that time, they did not allow the FTC chairman to remain in her position. So Rebecca Slaughter is her name. So she did not remain in her position. So that kind of, some people think that the Supreme Court probably signaled, what their intention was. So it's just in the beginning stages today. I don't know if the Supreme Court will hear the case. I'm thinking they may take a day or two, and then they'll have to make a decision. But it's going to be a major decision. So moving on, we're gonna go to some clips, and I wanted to start with Trump and the affordability comments, because he's saying that affordability is a Democratic hoax now, and that where did they come up with this word? And he actually started the affordability word back in 2024 when he was running for president. So let's listen to a clip.
The reason I don't want to talk about affordability is because everybody knows that it's far less expensive under Trump.
So I don't want to hear about the affordability, because right now we're much less.
It was a con job, affordability they call it.
But we just lost an election, they said, based on affordability.
I saw that they kept talking about affordability.
So we talk about affordability. We should be talking about it because they talk about affordability. The affordability is much better with the Republicans. We are the ones that have done great on affordability.
So we are the victors on affordability.
So that was Trump stating that, taking credit for the Republicans creating the word affordability. And I can tell you right now that I've spoken to people in my family, I've spoken to friends, I've spoken to people who just want to have a conversation, and almost every one of them out of 15 people said that affordability is their number one issue right now. Everything is more expensive. Trump can say all he wants that prices are going down and things are getting better, but if you go shopping, if you go to the store, if you buy meat, fruit, vegetables, bread, diapers, milk, everything they have in the store, you'll see that across the board, you're spending a lot more than you used to. And in my case, I noticed that my grocery bills are almost double what they used to be. And so while he's telling the public that things are getting better, things are actually not getting better. They're getting more expensive. And now we're going to now play the second clip of Trump talking about affordability.
The word affordability is a con job by the Democrats. They say affordable. I watched the other day where some very low IQ congresswoman talked about affordability. She had no idea. Their prices were much higher. The word affordability is a Democrat scam. The word affordability is a con job by the Democrats. They say affordable. I watched the other day where some very low IQ congresswoman talked about affordability. She had no idea.
Okay, so there you have President Trump completely flip-flopping what he said from 2024 to 2025. And I think that affordability is a very accurate word, because that's what we're really talking about. And more people of middle income, lower income, more and more, they're getting paid less. They're finding it harder to find a job. So ADP is probably the company that issues the most paychecks. They're a paycheck issuing company. And they reported in November that 32,000 jobs were lost. And so you might say, well, why didn't the Division of Labor Statistics provide the numbers? Well, they really aren't doing that anymore. So we don't really know where unemployment stands right now accurately. There's been 1.1 million jobs lost since January, and that's significant. But the worst part of that is that the Trump administration shut down the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he doesn't want it reported accurately. And you have to keep in mind, our economy is tied to the entire world. And so when we don't get accurate numbers on the economy, the rest of the world suffers with us. And I guess they just don't want the bad news out there, but I would take the bad news over any news because I need to know how things are going, just like everyone else. I know that our houses have gone down. I know that they're trying to get interest rates lowered. I know that Trump wants to get rid of the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, who is refusing to lower interest rates because Trump thinks that interest rates getting lowered would help the economy. And traditionally, it's modern economics. It's something that everyone in economics understands. They know that if you have inflation and inflation's getting out of control, you raise the interest rates in order to slow the economy. So lowering interest rates now, yes, it would make houses and credit cards and things more accessible to certain people, but really only the rich people. The people who are middle class, lower middle class, lower income, they would not be able to afford it anyway, even if they lower it. So it only benefits the people who are at the higher end of the millionaires, the billionaires. So a bad idea all the way around. Switching gears to the Epstein files, because I know that along with the economy, Epstein files is right at the top of everyone's list. And I want you to listen to this clip of Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, who I think is Stansbury, who I think is outstanding. She's very intelligent. She makes a great argument. And this is what she said just a couple of days ago.
Maga, who alleged that she was groomed and assaulted by Epstein and others, including those with significant global influence, emails and correspondence in which Epstein states that Trump knew about the girls and that minors were being recruited from Mar-a-Lago, that Trump was present at Epstein's residence on numerous occasions, and that Epstein possessed photographs of Trump with young girls, and that Trump was, quote, the dog that hadn't barked, a phrase that Epstein used to suggest Trump's potential silence to police. The documents also reference financial transfers between Epstein and Trump, discussion of Trump's business affairs, and concerns about potential money laundering through real estate transactions, all matters that may or may not have criminal significance and clearly warrant investigation. Additionally, we have documents from the Epstein estate in which Epstein himself assessed that he faced a mandatory minimum of at least 10 years in prison, yet the Justice Department declined to prosecute him under federal law despite recommendations from his own line prosecutor. And these statements appear to directly conflict with sworn testimony that the Oversight Committee received from U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta just a few months ago, when he claimed that credible evidence to pursue federal charges was not there. Together, these materials are a substantial body of evidence, and it is evidence that the American people deserve and demand to see. Justice matters because those who abused, enabled, financed, and protected this criminal enterprise must face the truth and must face consequences. And transparency is essential for healing and restoring confidence in the rule of the law. And it is essential because Congress has a responsibility to ensure that our justice system protects victims, not perpetrators. And that includes strengthening victims' rights legislation that will likely move through this very committee. And so part of why I am here today is to advocate to please take the partisanship out of this case. Please address the facts as you see them before you. Please join us in this investigation, and please help us hold these people accountable. Thank you.
Right. So one of my favorite Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, and she's pleading to the Republican conservatives, I guess the MAGAs, and she's pleading with the other congressmen and to a certain extent the senators to start to look at the Epstein case with honest eyes, to look at it, to understand that these girls were victimized, They were trafficked, some as young as 12 and 13, allegedly. And it's time for the Epstein files to come out. Recently, there were some files of Epstein's Island, which I don't know if you saw the rooms or not, but they look a little strange. You know, a chair in the middle with lots of chairs around it. So I guess people can engage or watch. I don't know, but it's something that we need to stay on. We can't let this, you know, as a country, we can't allow this. We can't allow these people to hide this and to bury it and to use their power to protect people who are pedophiles. And if you know Melanie Stansberry, she's very powerful, she's very intelligent, and she puts together a really good case. She's well-spoken, she knows her statistics, she knows her facts, and if I ever could get her as an attorney, I would, because she seems like she would win every case, every time. Just mentioning in the room, I guess some in the live chat, some people have come into the live chat and they're wondering where Brian is. So I'd like to reiterate, he was called last minute by, I believe, Channel 13 to participate in a charity golf tournament. So you get me today instead of Brian, and Brian will be back tomorrow. I think the plan is that I will co-host with Brian on Wednesday, and we're hoping that they're able to raise a lot of money for charity, and we'll keep you posted on that. I'm sure when he comes in tomorrow, he will update you on what exactly is going on at the charity golf tournament. So moving on. So Dean Obeidallah is a very well-spoken commentator on MSNBC, and sometimes he speaks a little fast, so you gotta listen carefully. But he called out fundamentalist GOP Speaker Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who's been accused by GOP women of being sexist. Johnson is banning coverage for IVF by U.S. military service members because it's against his religion. So IVF, in vitro fertilization, he's blocking it because he doesn't believe in it. And in his clip, Dean says that this is what Sharia law looks like. What he's trying to say is that in other nations, their religion is what becomes the law when it comes to women and when it comes to people in general. And it's not about law or legalities or people's rights or civil rights. It's really about them believing what's in their religion. Let's play the clip.
I mean, you're saying a religious fundamentalist might have issues with women? Man, I never heard that before. And look at Mike Johnson, the other side of Trump, on IVF. Like Trump, he wants to be the father of IVF. That's what he said, which is unnerving in its own respect. But he wants to take it out of being covered by the defense bill. And there are women and other Republicans on board with it. And he's saying, no, I don't want to do this. And it all has to do with his right-wing religious beliefs. And Senator Duckworth has called out his right-wing agenda. And this guy wants to govern like we are the Christian version of Saudi Arabia. He wants this extreme view where his religion is the law, which they call Sharia law, that we want to impose, and we don't. That's a lie. But they, on the far right, want to do that. That's why we have abortion bans in 13 states. That is what Sharia law looks like. Religious beliefs, now it's a law, now it's forced down your throats. Live your life accordingly. I mean,
okay, so we're setting a dangerous precedent. When Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, cedes all power to the president by his own admission, and the president calls himself, he said, I'm the president and the Speaker of the House. So Mike Johnson has basically ceded his power. I don't know what they're waiting for. I don't know why they don't try to move on to a different speaker. And Mike Johnson has this religious, Christian, some kind of background where it's real strict Christianity. I guess he thinks maybe it comes right out of the Bible, but I don't remember anything in the Bible saying that you should mistreat women. And I've read it several times. And the problem is that it's starting to show because Mike Johnson doesn't want to put women in charge of, he doesn't want them to be the chair of committees. He doesn't want them to have a say. He doesn't want them to be able to submit bill drafts. And he's having a big influence in a negative way on the women who are in Congress, and it's starting to really show. I believe he should stick to the rules and the laws of Congress. Congress decides what the laws are, and they vote on them, and the president gets to either sign it or veto it. But as far as allowing only men to decide on that, I think it's archaic, and I think that Mike Johnson has some real issues. He's really, in my opinion, he's a strange guy to have in charge. I've been asked in my personal life, my position about women. I've been asked in the live chat. It came up a few times, and I want you to know how I feel about women. Women have been incredibly resilient and resourceful throughout history. They play vital roles in culture, art, science, and leadership. It's obvious that without women, humankind would not exist. When I think of women such as Rosa Parks, Michelle Obama, Mother Teresa, Valentina Tereshkova, who was the first woman in space. She was Russian, but she broke the glass ceiling by being the first woman in space. When I think of powerful, intelligent congresswomen such as Melanie Stansbury, Jasmine Crockett, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and when I think about how intelligent they are and how powerful they are and how they do not back up for people like President Trump or Mike Johnson who are trying to intimidate and marginalize them as women. When I think of my mother, your mothers, grandmothers, my wife, and your daughters, and what they bring to the world, they bring compassion, love, empathy, intellect, power, substance, common sense. They stand together against victimization and against corruption, and somehow they maintain their dignity and their respect for themselves through all of this turmoil, through all of the bad and all of the good. God truly placed them here to make our world a better place. That is my opinion. You may agree or disagree, but that is the reality of the women's place in our world. So you heard it from me, my words to you. You can disagree. If you're listening right now and you're one of those guys or one of those girls who thinks that I'm way off on what I'm saying, you can call in, because in a little while we'll be taking your calls. And if you disagree, come at me, make an argument why women should not be allowed in Congress to be the chair of these committees. They should not be heard. They should be home. And what do you think Make America Great Again is? What do you think that means? They're talking about going back to the 1940s, to the 1950s, when women cooked and cleaned and took care of children. And if you want to go back to the early 1900s, they couldn't even vote. We had to create a law to allow women to have a vote. I want to say around 1920 or so. And so when they say make America great again, that's a past tense. Are they talking about going all the way back to the 1800s when there was slavery, things like that? What does it really mean when you want to go back in time? Because I think America is a progressive country. We look forward. We move forward. We grow. We learn. We grow together. We learn together. And as somebody said just last week, and I wish I could remember who said it, we have more in common with one another than we have not in common with one another. So we are all going in the same direction at all times. And we'll get to the next clip. So recently, the Letitia James, controversy came up again, and this is Letitia James talking a little bit about the drugs and how we're blowing up boats in the Caribbean and killing the passengers, and at the same time, Trump pardons one of the biggest drug dealers we've ever had, who was convicted of a conspiracy to distribute over 400 tons of cocaine to America. So keep in mind, that's about the size, cocaine is about the size of 200 elephants. That's how much cocaine. So let's go to the clip.
He pardoned the former president of Honduras. He's a drug kingpin. And he talks about how he wants to stop all these drugs from coming into our country. He was like one of the largest drug pins, and you just pardoned him. And what the hell have you done with regards to fentanyl? What have you done on opioids? What have you done on xylazine? Nothing. And let's be honest, does cocaine really come from Venezuela? Or does it come from Colombia?
Okay, so that's Letitia James fighting back a little bit. Obviously, she recently won her lawsuit. And once again, very intelligent woman. And sometimes I don't know where she gets her courage from, because she seems to me like a woman who's very intelligent, very well informed, very well educated, and at the same time is not afraid to take on some of the most controversial subjects in our entire nation. And she does it with poise and grace. And she seems to not have fear of anyone. So moving on. Now we have a clip of Jasmine Crockett, who is also one of my favorite congresswomen. She may be, I don't know if she announced yet, but Jasmine Crockett is most likely going to run for Senate in Texas. In fact, the person in the lead, I forget his name, is stepping aside so she can run for Senate. And if I lived in Texas, I would definitely vote for her. And she's talking a little bit about Pete Hegseth.
So what is the mood in Washington about Pete Hegseth? I personally feel that he should go, but there needs to be an investigation, but still, it looks bad.
Here's the deal. We knew that when this president decided upon the people that were going to be in his administration, we knew that we weren't going to get the best. And Pete Hegseth has always been a loser. The fact that now people want to say, oh, we should get rid of him, I'm sorry, the signal leak didn't inform you that this guy wasn't the guy that should be leading our troops. But what I hate the most about this is nobody sees the hypocrisy. Right now they're saying, oh, throw him under the bus. And then Pete Hegseth is like, no, throw those under me under the bus. But we know what happened with my colleagues in the House and the Senate, and they wanted to remind service members that you are not to follow an unlawful order. So then they decided, and it's Pete Hegseth that wants to now go after a sitting senator for simply reminding people of their oath, while at the same time going after people that they are claiming violated their oath. Yeah. That is absolute hypocrisy, and is absolutely disgusting, and it is beneath our service members.
Right. So Congressman Jasmine Crockett, who also is very well educated, very well spoken, and not everybody loves her fire and her passion, but I do. I think it's necessary. She makes her points very well, and she's correct. So you're going to investigate a sitting senator who's a former military captain, and people who are former CIA and other former military people who decide to get on TV or get on radio or get on social media. And all they did was reiterate the military uniform code of justice. That's all they did. They said that, by the way, you don't have to follow legal orders. And if you look in the military code of justice, it actually mentions shipwrecked. It says if a boat is shipwrecked and they're no longer able to attack and they're no longer a threat, that you either have to take them into custody, because taking people in custody is good intelligence gathering, right? Rather than just killing them, because if you kill them, you get no intelligence from them. And you should also do your best to try to render aid. If people are floating if you've blown up their ship and it's upside down and they're floating in the ocean, then you should at the very least try to administer some medical assistance to those people. And so Jasmine Crockett is calling them out. I think this is going to escalate. I think that I don't think the Democrats are going to let this slide. I think they're going to stay on Pete Hegseth. And Donald Trump said, I wasn't there. But Donald Trump has always says that it begins and ends with him. He's the command. He reminds you, he's the commander in chief. He's the leader. I know better than the generals. I know better than everybody. I know better than the builders. I build buildings better than anyone. He always says that. He said it starts with him and it ends with him. He says it all the time. But all of a sudden he's saying, oh yeah, I wasn't really in on that. And then Pete Hegseth, who's a Secretary of Defense, he says, I was in there for the first strike, but then, I kind of left for the second one. And they think that by not being there and not involving themselves, or at least hiding the information, that they're going to have no responsibility in this attack. And that's not the way it works. I was a police officer for 25 years. I retired as a lieutenant. And I can tell you that when the lawsuits come in against the police department, they also name the supervisor who was on that day. They also name the chief of police. They also name the city or county that represents the police department. And so the people at the top get sued because they're the ones who set the policy. They're the ones who set the law. They're the ones who focus on accountability and make sure things are done in accordance with the law. So just because you say you didn't know about it, you weren't there, that doesn't relieve you of your responsibility and your culpability in that matter. That's not the way it works. And now we're going to move on to the next clip, and that's going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene on 60 Minutes. Some of you may have seen this interview on 60 Minutes, and she's talking about how furious Trump was with her for supporting the presenting of the Epstein files. Let's go to the clip.
We did talk about the Epstein files, and he was extremely angry at me that I had signed the discharge petition to release the files. I fully believe that those women deserve everything they're asking. They're asking for all of it to come out. They deserve it. And he was furious with me.
What did he say?
He said that it was going to hurt people.
Okay, I was distracted by Nunchuck because we were having a little discussion about the camera behind the scenes. So let's get back to what we're supposed to be talking about, Nunchuck. So Marjorie Taylor Greene says that Trump is furious with her because she signed a discharge petition, to the point where Trump actually said to her, he didn't want the Epstein files to come out because people are going to get hurt. What does he mean? Which people are going to get hurt? Because they're redacting the names of the victims. And many of the victims, this is something they don't really talk about on the news, but many of the victims do not mind if their name is in the files. They're in the fight. They've already testified in front of the Capitol building. They've already hired attorneys, and they are not afraid. That doesn't mean all the women want their information out there. Many of them do not. So it can be redacted. And so when Trump says that a lot of people can get hurt, I think we know who he means. I think we know we're talking about the millionaires and the billionaires. And by the way, they're starting to track the money. They're tracking J.P. Morgan and I think Deutsche Bank, and they're starting to follow the money that Jeffrey Epstein was dealing. I want to say he was dealing with 20 or so different banks. So it's going to take some time. But you know what they say? If you want to know what's really going on, if you really want to know how it was run, follow the money. And so they're trying to keep the resources of the banks. They're trying to keep that secret. Those are the files they're talking about. Also, there's hundreds or thousands of photos of young girls in a lot of different kinds of photos that are going to make a lot of people look really bad. So when you're talking to your friends and you're talking to your family, I would say stay on the Epstein files. Don't let up on it. Don't let these distractions like the Supreme Court and these other distractions bring you away from the Epstein files, because that can truly, between the economy, the affordability argument, and the Epstein files, it may be a landslide victory in next year's midterms for the Democrats, because you don't really have any Republicans, no MAGAs. There's really no one out there other than these handful of Republicans that signed the discharge petition that are really standing up for the victims out there. So I think that people are about tired of paying more and more. I can tell you every day, the streaming services, they raise it $1 or $2 every month. When you go to the store, when you use your credit card, when you go shopping for clothes, you notice that the same sweats, that you used to buy to work out in are almost double what they used to be. And so they're not hiding, even though Trump tries to lie and say, oh, no, prices are good. It's the best it's ever been, best economy ever. Even though he says that, he's not reaching the average American. His approval rating's down to 36%. Okay, so 36% approve and 60 or so % disapprove of how he's doing. And when you start to wonder what that 36% is, I would say that's probably he's more like that's his MAGA base, right? So his MAGA base started in the 50s, high 40s, and now we're down to 36%. And if you start to cut into that 36%, it's going to be real hard for those Republicans to get reelected because they're not bringing anything new to the table. Everything that they're bringing to the table are things that 36, 35, 34% tend to support. So how do you get independents? They're down. They're in something like 80% of the independents say they do not agree with the Trump's agenda, especially when it comes to the economy. And obviously the Dems don't support what they're doing. They don't support ICE raids. They don't support ICE use of force. They don't support ICE going into cities and counties and Home Depot and everywhere else and throwing people on the ground. And you have videos of them punching people in the head, spraying them with mace, throwing them in the cars. And then people who are videoing or taking out their phones and trying to capture all this use of force and this violation of rights on video, sometimes they get taken down. Sometimes they get arrested just for recording what's actually going on. So huge problem in America as far as I'm concerned. And I think we're coming up on the last clip. So this clip is so some senators on both sides were allowed to see the video of the bombing of the boat and the enemy combatants floating in the water with the boat upside down, trying to turn the boat over. And obviously some Republicans say, well, they were trying to flip the boat over, not to survive, not to get out of the ocean, because they wanted to continue their mission, which obviously that's not accurate. So this is Tom Cotton, but I want you to listen because it's a short clip, but he talks about the boat strikes, and he seems to say that there were actually 4 strikes, and then he kind of catches himself. And I thought it was a very interesting clip because he had just left the room where he watched the video. He just came out from watching the video, and it seemed like he wasn't concentrating, and he was just spewing out his inaccuracies. And he actually says there were 4 strikes. So let's listen.
The first strike, the second strike, and the third and the fourth strike on September 2nd were.
He said it right there. He said on September 2nd, the first strike, the second strike, the third strike, and the fourth strike. So was he just nervous in front of the camera, or did they really have a lot more strikes than they're even reporting? And by the way, how come Pete Hegseth, malfunction, how come Pete Hegseth said that they're thinking about releasing the video after the first strike? He said they're reviewing it. So let me ask you, how long does it take to review a video? How long does that take? If you're looking at a video of what actually happened, how long do you have to look at a video of a boat being blown up in an ocean and then a second strike or more, depending on if you believe Senator Cotton or not? How long does that take to review? You review it and you release it, and they say, well, some of it is classified. It's not classified. It's not classified material because Pete Hegseth kind of implied that he can unclassify stuff in his mind as it's occurring, which, I don't really think that's really possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to take some of your phone calls, 702-221-7283. The phone calls are 702-221-7283. I want you to call, and the phone lines usually fill up pretty fast. You may have to hold a little bit, but I will try to get to all of you so we can hear what everyone has to say. You're listening to the Pushing the Limits radio show here with Leonard Cardinale. Stand by.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip.
Here's the deal. The country's a mess at 20.
Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
You are way too smart, way too talented, way too good to be where you are. You are meant to be making way more money, feel way hotter in your body and having way more fun. Hi, I'm Nicole Mitchell, and I'm a life coach. I help you get hotter and richer. If that is what you're looking for, you can find me at NicoleMitchell.com. My name, Nicole, is with a K, NicoleMitchell.com. You can reach out to me on my website or on Instagram, and I will be happy to be in touch and figure out what you're looking for and how I can support you in getting there.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at RadioYOU101.com.
Here's the deal. The country's a mess, and America's youth is stuck at the center of a tug-of-war between propaganda, billionaires, and political clowns who think TikTok is a national security threat, yet can't open their own email. But the real threat that keeps them up at night isn't TikTok. It's the power of the youth vote, and that's what the Unfuck America tour is after. We're traveling the country, hitting campuses and cities, exposing the right wing's playbook and calling out all the tricks they use to hook young people. We saw the youth vote shift in 2024, and if we don't reclaim that momentum now, we lose the future, our future. We're not bankrolled by billionaires, corporations, or dark money. We're backed by regular people like you, who won't sit back while the rich strip this country for parts. We need you to help us stay on the road to push back against the misinformation machine. Click the link in the description or head over to unfuckamericatour.com to donate, because nobody else is coming to fix this mess.
Okay, we're back with Pushing the Limits radio show with your host, Leonard Cardinale. If you're wondering where Brian Shapiro is today, he was at the last minute. He was asked to go to a charity golf tournament, and he's helping raise money. So good luck to him. Some people were asking if Brian is going to debate Alexander Wilson again, and Andrew Wilson. Sorry, thank you. I don't know where I got Alexander from. So Andrew Wilson again, and I think they're having talks about that. If you remember, Andrew Wilson came a couple of weeks ago, and he brought his own moderator, which I don't even know like how you debate with your own moderator there. And so I think Brian is going to try to get him to debate without a moderator, or perhaps a moderator that is, neutral, who doesn't have a side, doesn't pick a side. And if you remember, Wilson was talked about all kinds of stuff. Andrew talked about ethics, and he tried to pivot to Christianity and Orthodox Christianity. And it was actually, they were supposed to talk about the ethics of Donald Trump, and pivoted many times. And I thought he didn't do well in the debate. Some people think he did. His people certainly think he did. I thought Brian did a great job. And so we'll have to wait and see if that happens again. So now we're going to take some calls, and call in, because the phone lines are they're filling up quickly, and we'll try not to leave you on hold too long if we can. So let's start out with Dave. Dave, you're up on PTL. What's on your mind?
Hello.
Hey, Dave. How you doing? What's on your mind? It's Leonard.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for taking my call, man.
What do Oh, today we're talking about. Is he still there? Today we were talking about the Supreme Court possibly making a decision on federal agencies. We're talking about Epstein files. We're talking about the economy, and we're talking about women in politics and how Mike Johnson is kind of keeping them down.
I have something for you. You ready?
Sure.
All right. Okay. You know Green, right?
Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Alabama Green. Yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene, whatever the hell her name is. All right. So, come on. I'm 61 years old, and I've been on this earth a lot longer than a lot of these people. So I know how these politicians work, and a lot of them are just pretty sneaky and conniving and filthy. They're filthy pigs. But let's just put it out there. Look, I'm very disappointed with all the Republicans. And me being an independent who voted for Barack twice and Clinton and voted for Reagan one time. But you know something, I'm going to be honest with you. The 10 Republicans who voted for him and impeached him on his first term, okay? Liz Cheney, Anthony Gonzalez, Peter, Mayor Dan Newhouse, Adam Kinzinger, remember those people? John Katko.
I like Adam
Fred Upton. Yeah, I love that man. He's such a great. He's kind of like in the middle. That's what I like about him. Fred Upton, who I don't like. Butler, whatever her name is, and Tom Rice, just to name a few. All right, these Republicans are pretty much chicken crap. A lot of them are, and a lot of them are basically a bunch of wuss. And I'm getting pissed off that all these people would just like to quit their job. Why don't you just stay there and impeach the guy instead of going out there and say, I'm going to quit. This is my last term. And I don't care if you're going to run to be the president of the United States or whatever the hell you want to be, but impeach him while you're there, or try to impeach him. Why be a chicken crap? Why just be a wuss and just basically say, well, I'm going to quit my job. I'm not going to go ahead and, I'm not going to run next time, or this is my last term or whatever the hell. Stay there and impeach him.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave.
There, and it's pissing me off. It really is pissing me off.
It sounds like it is.
But the other ones weren't scared of him.
Let me ask you this.
People were scared of them.
Why has no one submitted a discharge petition for impeachment? Like, if there's so many Democrats, there's so many Republicans, how come no one has filed a discharge petition for impeachment? Because what I'm saying is, if you have enough Republicans, like what happened in the Epstein files, if you have enough Republicans backing you, then you could possibly go through the impeachment process. Could you not?
You can, absolutely. But I'm just saying, the fact is, like I'm saying, is that why be a wuss? I mean, they're all kissing his ass. And, with all due respect, I'm just saying that's what they're doing.
Well, they're saying that they don't like the way they're treated, that they're told how to vote. They're told what they're going to support. They're told what to say on TV. And they feel like, you have to remember, when you run for Congress or Senate, it takes up your entire life. You have to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, usually, if not millions of dollars. And it takes all your time, and you have to go to town halls, and you have to go to schools and talk to children. You have to do charity. And so to do all that work, and this is just my perspective, to do all that work.
I'm going to interject there. I'm going to interject you with that. I'm going to agree, disagree on that one, because look at the guy from the mayor, the mayor in San Francisco, and the mayor over there in New York. What's his name? Mamdani. He didn't have any money. He came to nothing. He lived in the Ozark with his family. There was a bunch of people. His whole life story is on Netflix that he told his whole life about. That he lived in a poor family, and there was a lot of people living in one house and one apartment. And he came from nothing. So if you gave me $1 million, you know what I'm saying? You think I'm going to take your $1 million?
I understand, but
I don't need your money. I don't need your money to win. I don't need your money to win. I don't.
I kind of also meant the time and energy and the commitment, and then being told what you have to do with your own ideas, with your own ethics, with your own morals, your vision of the country. And so they're kind of tired of it. And then you have to remember, if you really piss off Trump, he's threatened to primary these people. So they're in a comfortable position where maybe it's 8 percentage points in favor of Republicans. And now they have to go through a primary, which it costs more money to go through a primary. And also, Trump controls a lot of the funding. If you look at AIPAC, if you look at NRA, if you look at some of these places that support all the Republicans, not all, but most of the Republicans, he can cut off their revenue stream as well.
Okay, what about the New York mayor? He basically made his life miserable. He made his life miserable to hell. To hell.
Andrew Cuomo outraised him by millions.
What about Jerry Brown? Well, what about Jerry Brown? Jerry Brown, but compared to the eBay, the eBay CEO, she raised about $188 million as CEO for eBay to run against Jerry Brown. And Jerry Brown only spent $2 million. She spent $188 million out of her pocket, and Jerry Brown won 3 terms. And something, it's not money. It's not money walks, money talks. It's about people that are hurting. If you basically go to the root of the problem of these people and why they're hurting, and you have to throw money into it, then you're missing the whole point, because money does not move a person unless you're that stupid, unless you think that you need the money that it's going to move you. But I'll tell you one thing, money does not move me. I don't care. You can throw me $10 million. I'm still not going to do your dirty work or your dirty laundry.
But money was only one of about 10 things. If you remember, running for office takes all your time, all your energy, town halls, showing up at schools, flying across the country, especially in federal elections, in U.S. elections. What I was saying is, after putting in all that energy, let's take the money out of it, because you think it's stupid, even though I think it's a little naive to not think the money matters. But let's say we take the money out of it. Then you still have everything that they believe in, everything that they stood for. And when you start asking, maybe, you know what, Dave, maybe these people have been in Congress for too long, and in the Senate too long, and they're older and they're crusty and they're set in their ways. And I would agree with you that I think it's time to get some newer, younger ideas, and maybe some younger, newer people with energy in there.
Yeah, like my mom, like the guy from New York, the mayor who came from nothing. He didn't have anything. If you watch his life story and Google it, or basically watch it on YouTube, you can watch his life story on Google. Just put the life of Mondi, whatever his name is, put his life story on there. Yeah, go on YouTube and put his life story on there, and you can see a whole documentary, about a 45-minute clip of his life. And he came from nothing. He didn't spend anything. He basically walked the walk, went door to door. He basically went in the middle of the street with a megaphone and tried to get attention from people. You don't need, if money thinks it's going to move you, and everybody says you need money, I am very doubted. Well, you better talk to the guy,
here's the thing, Dave,
the New York mayor who won. He won.
Let me interrupt you real quick.
He won with no money.
It's a good phone call. And I understand what you're saying, but the next time you go to the grocery store, try and tell them you don't want to pay with money. You're just a good guy. So the money does matter. The money aspect makes a difference. Thanks for the call, Dave. And we're going to move on to X. X is next up. How you doing, X? This is Leonard. What's on your mind? X, you there? Xavier. X function. X.
Yeah, sorry. Is that okay?
That's you got Leonard. Wait, I'll see if I can get him. Okay. Leonard, yes, I'm here. What's on your mind, X?
A few things I want to ask you. The first one is probably not that important, but who do you think is better? Who do you think was a better president, Richard Nixon or Donald Trump?
A better president. I think they're both. And statistically, they're the most corrupt presidents in all of history. And I could name item after item after item. In fact, they're trying to gather power and use it against their own people in America is probably what they had in common. I think if I was around in those times, or if I voted in those times, I don't think it's somebody I would vote for. But do I understand you're trying to make a little bit of a debate, but do you think there's any redeemable qualities to Donald Trump at all? And if so, what are they?
Richard Nixon is a better person, in my opinion, much better person.
Yeah, because he probably didn't hurt as many people as Trump. Trump took away millions of people's medical care. He took away SNAP for children. Who does that? Who takes away SNAP and WIC for children? Who takes away and says, oh, well, who takes away school lunches? Who takes away people's ability to pay their bills? Medicare, Medicaid. And if you think Trump's not doing that, you're wrong, because that's exactly what's in his big, beautiful, ugly bill.
Like, yes, I get that. Like, and yes, like, I think, like, as weird as it is, Richard Nixon is a great person compared to him. I mean, I'm sorry, but like, he's a great person.
Well, I appreciate your comments, X, and thank you for the phone call.
One more thing I wanted to ask you, like, hello, Leonard.
Go ahead. I'll let you get one more in there, although the lines are full.
I know. Well, thank you so much. Like, hey, Leonard, but like, what I wanted to ask you was, so who do you want to see run for 2028? Like, for president and vice president?
I think, well, the rumor is that obviously Gavin Newsom, who's 10,000 times smarter than Trump and better looking, in my opinion, may run with Pete Buttigieg, which I think is a really good balance. What I would like to see is Gavin Newsom run with Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, because I think they have a good balance, and Gretchen Whitmer is always focused on her state. She's always focused on what is best for her state, what is best for her people, and that's kind of the leadership that we need in America. That's the kind of leadership that can turn America around. And I know there's a lot of other possibilities, but since you asked, that's my opinion. So moving on. We're going to go to Jason. Hi, Jason. This is Leonard. What's on your mind?
If you allow me to present my soliloquy, I'd be most appreciative.
Present it, brother.
Okay, so number one, in 2016, Pete Hegseth himself said, do not follow illegal orders.
That's correct.
It's on video. They've been showing it all last week. That's number one. Most of all, I think this, if health, the orange turn, doesn't keep power, I think Maga, like you said, they want to bring them back to the 50s or maybe in the 1900s. But I'm going to tell you this, if Maga doesn't hold power, the sycophants, the cultish, moronic, dumbest people on the planet, I don't think you'll ever, for the next 20 years, will be back in power. Because we've already seen what Maga is. They're dumb, moronic, and follow whatever the leader says. So to me, and if women don't wake up now, they never will. To watch how Maga is trying to put them back in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant. If they vote for anybody that's from the Republican Party in the next 10 years, we deserve what we get. Because the women and Hispanics are the reason why Trump's in office. And I hope both of those two populations wake up. Other than that, I digress.
Well, before you digress, let me ask you a question, Jason. So what do you think it is about the white Christian nationalist, MAGA, Republican, conservative movement that allows them to continue to be lied to and continue to be pushed in the direction of division and hatred, even to their own demise? They're willing to lose money. They're willing to lose positions and power in order to make sure that all the rest of the people in this country who are not white national racists don't get anything. Why is that? How do you change that? How can you get through to these people?
You can't, brother. It's just like the sick set of Muslim faith. Like my man said on MSNBC, white nationalism is Sharia law. It's Sharia law. They want everybody to bow down to their religion because it has nothing to do with Christianity. It has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. There's not one person that can tell me they're a white nationalist and believe in what Jesus said. So what it is American white Sharia law, period.
So if you would stand by for a second, Jason, just for the listeners, what I think we're talking about is the fact that in other countries, in the Middle Eastern countries, women don't have a lot of rights, and there's Sharia law. And what happens is men come into power and they gain power, and instead of making laws like the Constitution, like federal laws, state laws, local laws, and having everyone kind of follow a lawful approach to life, what they do is they take their religion, which is usually extremist, and in some cases against women, and they use that extreme religion or that extreme view of the religion, and they decide to make that the law instead of something that benefits everyone. Is that kind of what we're talking about, Jason?
Yeah, but you got to also remember this, and this is the most important part. White nationalists don't care about life. They only care about what's in the womb. After it comes out of the womb, they don't feed kids. They take away their school lunch. They don't care about women. They don't care about their prenatal care. They don't want to give them leave. They don't want to give vacation. All the things. They don't even want men to stay home and help. Let the mother go to work and you stay home and watch the baby.
I agree.
So,
I agree because these Republicans, these conservative Republicans, and these shady MAGAs, what they are is they're pro-birth. That's about it. They talk about conception, they talk about the baby, but after that, they don't want to feed the child, they don't want to take care of the child, they don't want the child to grow up healthy and mentally secure. All they want to do is make sure it's born. And by the way, when we talk about abortion, there's a lot more than just when do they become a life. Okay, we're talking about teenage girls in some cases. We're talking about teenage girls or young girls that are raped by someone in their family. We're talking about the life of the mother if they continue to have the child. We're talking about a lot of different circumstances. So for someone to say, no, you have to have every baby, I think is just really someone who has really low standards and ethics.
I got it even sicker than that. If you remember that lady in Texas had a stillbirth, and they made sure that she had to keep that all the way until birthing, and which means that all that disease in her would stop her from ever having a baby again. They don't care about life. And if you really thought about it, when Breonna Taylor was in the room in her house and they shot him up, if they were so-called Christians, they would have stood up for that. So please, white nationalists don't care about nothing but babies in the womb. They don't even care. If that was the case, we wouldn't even have foster care. Because all the white nationalists would adopt foster kids. But do you see them running around adopting kids? No, they go across to other nations to adopt babies. They don't adopt American babies.
That's a good point, Jason. And by the way, everyone who listens, they love your passion. They love when you make your points, and we love your phone calls. Thank you for calling.
Not a problem. God bless. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you also. And so we're going to Siobhan. Is that correct? Siobhan, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hi, Leonard. I was calling to let you know that about a month ago, Rep. Al Green and some other Democrats got in front of the Capitol building, and they did a big protest, and Al Green wrote up papers like articles of impeachment, but
I remember that.
The problem is the Republicans won't vote for it, and not even all of the Democrats are on board.
Yes, well, and what I had said was, Al Green is a great activist and a great man, and he's trying to do what's right, and the articles of impeachment were relevant. But what I was asking is, if you can create a discharge petition, which goes around the Speaker of the House, and if you could get enough Republicans on board for an impeachment, you could at least, now it may not pass, but why has no one filed a discharge petition? And also, I understand that we would run into a problem in the Senate, right? Because the Congress impeaches, the Senate convicts. And so you would have to have the same amount. You would have to change about 4 or 5 votes in the Senate, and they would have to be on the side of the convict on the impeachment. So I know, but my question was, how come no one is presenting this type of legislation? Like, where are they? What are they? How much worse could he? I know it could get worse, but how much worse could it get? The economy is terrible. You have people running around in camouflage, throwing Americans on the ground. Something like 10% are violent criminals of the people they're taken into custody. Since the beginning of the year, they've taken 220,000 people into custody, of which 70,000 were already Americans. So 70,000 people in America were taken into custody because they had an accent, or because they had dark skin, or because they maybe looked Mexican, or they looked like they were from Puerto Rico. And could it get much worse?
I mean, I just don't know what it's going to take for them to all get on board and do their job. I'm so fed up with what's going on and what all we have to go, what all we're going through in this country. It's unreal.
Well, Siobhan, thank you for your call, and keep believing that it can get better. And thanks for the call. It was a good call. Thank you. What line next? Patrick. Hello, Patrick.
What's
This
up,
is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Congratulations on the show, buddy. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm having fun today.
I bet you are, man. Looks like a great time. Hey, I just wanted to address Jason, the passionate caller that was earlier talking about that incident that happened in Texas. Very unfortunate, but what happened was that was actually a botched abortion. She had abortion pills and whatnot, and the complications.
I'm sorry. Did you say you were?
In Texas, the case that happened that Jason was referring to.
Okay.
That he was very passionate about. That was actually a botched abortion that she died from complications of.
Okay.
So I just want to point that out. Hey, and another thing, I was kind of surprised you didn't mention Tim Walz or Kamala Harris for 2028.
You know what?
And what are the prospects of Tim Walz's political future after what happened in Minnesota? What we're uncovering.
So this is what happened with Kamala Harris. She was on Stephen Colbert, and she was, trying to push her book. And at some point, Stephen asks her, he says, are you going to run again? And she's already shaking her head no. And he's trying to ask her, and she goes, no, the Democratic Party's broken. And then about a month ago, she came out when she was doing another interview and said, well, I think it's fixing itself. And, I might like to be part of that. But here's the problem I have.
Nice.
Here's the problem. There's no leadership. If you're a leader, you don't wait. You don't go on TV in front of millions of people and say you're waiting for someone else. You want to be the leader of the country, and you're waiting for the Democratic Party to fix itself before you run. I completely disagreed with that. And when Trump used the R word, well, let me just finish. Trump used the R word on Tim Walz and his family. Tim responded, but I don't see a lot of fire and a lot of passion there. I can tell you right now, I don't care if it was the president of the United States. I don't care who it was. If they were using the R word about my family, you would hear from me to the point where I would probably get in trouble. But I digress. Go ahead.
But you would say that his political future is definitely in jeopardy with what's going on and what's being uncovered in Minnesota with all the fraud.
Are you talking about Tim Walz?
Yeah, Minnesota, Keith Ellison, Ilhan Omar. There's a whole bunch of them involved in this. It doesn't look good.
Well, I know that I know there's been accusations, but I don't think any substantive came out of it. But I know that the Trump administration is picking on the Somalian culture over there in Minnesota. I know that they're in Minneapolis. They're going after them just because they have dark skin and they talk differently. And then when they brought up to Trump, well, they're naturalized citizens. And he said, what does he say? As the president of the United States, we're going to figure out a way to unnaturalize them. That was his answer to people who are naturalized citizens.
You do recognize though, if you become naturalized, you become a citizen, you can become unnaturalized if it's found that you committed immigration fraud, right? You agree with that.
But what I'm saying is that is not how America was built. That is un-American. America was not built on those kinds of threats. It was not built on discrimination. It was a place where everyone could come and not be hated for the color of their skin or the way they spoke or because they were a female, because they were a black female. And that's how America became America. So when I stand against it, hold on, and I'll let you speak. So when I stand against it, it's because it's un-American. It's not what America wants. It's what Donald Trump wants. And it's racist and it's discrimination. But go ahead.
Is it American to commit immigration fraud?
Well, it can't be American because you're coming from another country. But I think your question is it okay for them to come here and be illegal aliens because they didn't become citizens? And I would say that, did you know the statistic that 81% of America is okay
that's not what I'm asking.
With people coming here and finding a legitimate path to citizenships? 81%. And did you know that 75% are against ICE?
Leonard, what is the repercussions, or what should be the repercussions for committing immigration fraud? Do you think they should be unnaturalized?
Okay, hold on a second. Now, coming here illegally is a misdemeanor.
That's not what we're talking about.
But fraud is when you actually
fraud.
I would imply that you become a citizen and that fraudulently, and that you're not legitimately a citizen. So which one is it, fraud, or are you just talking about coming here illegally and staying?
I am talking about immigration fraud, lying on an application, not telling the truth, and becoming a citizen, and then they find out looking back that, hey, you lied.
Well, they should be charged with a crime just like, I mean, that's simple. You should be charged with a crime just like everyone else. just like everyone else. If I commit a crime, if you commit a crime, you should be charged. But that doesn't mean that you get taken into custody because you committed fraud and you have no rights and no civil liberties and you don't get an attorney and you don't get due process. Remember, we left England. One of the reasons we left England is because, hold on, let me finish. One of the reasons we left England is because there was no due process. You could not get yourself heard when you were charged with crimes. And that's one of, not the main reason, one of the reasons we left England, because we wanted to have a country where you had due process, where you had search and seizure rights, where you had rights to stand up for yourself. You had the right to not testify against yourself in a criminal proceeding. We had none of that in England. So that is America. That's as American as it gets. And by the way, the Constitution does not say that citizens get due process. It says everyone, all people get due process.
I'm talking, these are American citizens that have been naturalized American citizens, but if they commit immigration fraud, why would
I already answered that. I already answered that. I'm going to have to move on because you're asking the same question over and over. I already answered that question, and I told you that if they commit fraud, me and most people in America think if you commit fraud that you should get charged with a crime. But that doesn't mean you lose your due process. That doesn't mean that you don't get to have an attorney and get heard by your accusers. Just because you're committing fraud and became a citizen doesn't mean that you get thrown in a van in the middle of the night and your family doesn't know where you are and there's no one to call. And by the way, when they call and try to find out where their loved one is, a lot of times the answer is we don't even know what agency took them. So how are you going to find your husband, your wife, or your grandmother if you don't even know where they are? But thank you for the call. Okay, now we're going to go to Terry. We're going to move on to Terry. Terry, it's Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hi, Leonard. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks for being on. Patrick. Why don't you, when you come on, share the data? Please share the data and tell us what states, what people. Share the frickin' data.
You know, Terry, I've been dealing with MAGAs and the like, and sometimes Republicans and conservatives, and these people who say they're Christians, and they love to argue. They go on Fox News, they get a bunch of talking points, and they string them together, and they go, what aboutism, and what about this? And I heard there was a lady in North Carolina that had a baby who shouldn't have, and this and that. And like you said, they have no facts and no figures. And if they want to name facts and figures, you know what? I have a bunch. I have a bunch of facts and figures that can rebut whatever they're going to say. So they can call in all day and they could try to make, like this last caller. He said, what do you think should happen to someone who commits immigration fraud and become a naturalized citizen? Well, no one's for that, right, Terry? No one's for protecting people that break the law. Am I correct?
You are correct on that, Leonard, and I just wanted to put that out there. I'm calling to just talk about. I had to cross off my #1 Christmas wish on the list this year. Unfortunately, Donald Trump is still in office, but I decided to move on to. I know, but still, you know. But I had to move on to my New Year's wish now, and that New Year's wish is that I hope the Democrats who are running in 2026 continue to organize and prepare to take back the seats in the House and the Senate. And I really believe that there are many great American patriots who are eager and ready enough to try to take back their country, and we'll get behind. You know, we got good candidates running, and I think they have a lot of good qualified people who will be running. But I think that we need to also consider, if we do have that opportunity to get the House and the Senate back, is to start organizing lawyers. Jamie Raskin, great representative from my state, incredible constitutional lawyer. Get ready.
He is well spoken.
Jack Smith, please get your robe and get ready to go to The Hague. Because I can tell you right now, there are war crimes, all kinds of stuff that need to be held accountable.
Well, that's two things there. I agree. If the Democrats take their foot off the gas, they're going to pay the price. I would agree with you on that. And the second thing is that the question comes up a lot. The Pam Bondis of the world and Kash Patels and Dan Bongino and Pete Hegseth and Barron and all these other Besant and all these others. What's going to happen to them after Donald Trump's no longer in power? Because they don't have the same protections that the president. They're not immune from prosecution by what they did. And they're talking about what happened in the Caribbean Sea with blowing up those two people after they were already shipwrecked, possibly being a war crime or possibly being murder. And so you have to remember that, yes, Donald Trump can pardon, but he can't pardon people that are convicted under the ICC, International Criminal Court. And out in the ocean there, it's maritime law. And what about the Geneva Convention? That all combatants, all civilized combatants in the world have to follow the Geneva Convention. Do you think there might be indictments or investigations post-Trump?
I am truly hoping that this will happen, that there will be indictments and yes, investigations. Yes, I do.
Well, I hope so. Terry, if I don't speak to you, have a great holiday. Thanks for the call. And I hope you have a great day. Moving on.
Thanks, Leonard.
Now we're going to Donna. Donna is on and with Leonard. And what's on your mind? Donna, you there?
Hello? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, this is Leonard. What's on your mind, Donna?
Just a few callers ago, I guess he was saying if you've been naturalized here and you lied on your application, should you now not become a citizen? And if that is the case, then I think we should send Melania back to where she came from.
You know, her and some of Trump's children fit the criteria for the people who are getting deported, from what I understand. But obviously, they have too much money and too much power. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he was saying that, and he sounds like a Trump supporter. And Melania's here illegally, really, because she lied on her.
You know what, Donna? The thing is, I think. I'm not going to speak for you, but I'm sure you're the kind of person where if you're breaking the law and you came here fraudulently, then you should be charged with a crime. But that's not what's happening. What they're doing is they're taking people. Some of these grandfathers and fathers have been here for 20, 30 years. They've worked. They paid into Social Security. And by the way, they could pay him for 30 years into Social Security. And if you're an illegal immigrant, you know what you get at the end of the 30 years after we took your money? You get nothing. You get no Social Security.
Right. Well, I just had to laugh when he was just saying, if they lied on their application, should they not become a citizen? Well, like I said, send Melania and the kids back.
That's what MAGA doesn't understand. They don't listen to common sense. And I told him I had to end the call because I told him 2 or 3 times to answer this question. What do you think should happen if a person's immigrant and they commit fraud? Well, then they should be charged like everyone else, right?
Yes, right, of course. But he's saying, they shouldn't become citizens anymore. And if that's the case, then Melania's not a citizen and send her back.
Well, let me ask you this, Donna. What if it's a typo? What if they submit an application and it wasn't fraud?
Right.
It was a typo. They still have to go to jail. Like they can't go in front of a judge. They can't get due process. They can't be protected by the 4th Amendment. And by the 14th Amendment, they're no longer protected against self-incrimination under the 5th Amendment. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I know. I come from a family where my father came over from Portugal as a child, 3 years old. But he joined the service, and that's how he became an American citizen. And I guess I don't know. Am I legal here because my father was born in Portugal? I don't know.
Yeah, when you start breaking it down, you could if you're going to denaturalize citizens and you're going to revoke visas, work visas that have already been granted under a different administration, then and if you're going to just throw people in the back of the van with no license plates on it and drive away with them, that's not America, Donna. Come on, let's say it like it is. That's not America.
No, and they're very hard workers, these people that come over. They're doing jobs that most American young men or women don't want to do.
Exactly. Well, I wasn't going to get into that, but isn't that how we got here, Donna? Isn't it hard to find Americans who want to stay out there for 12 hours and pick strawberries or pick cotton? Right. Isn't it hard to find people that want to clean up in a pig pen after a day of feeding the pigs? Isn't it hard to find people? How about landscaping? I did landscaping once for about a week, and it killed me. It's very physical. It's very hard to do. And so you have people who want to build bridges, who want to build great structures, and they all come to this country, and then you're like, okay, well, we're going to arrest you and throw you out. And by the way, we don't really even have a refugee program anymore. We don't even take in refugees anymore. They don't even want to come here because of Trump.
No. And once they're naturalized, they're so proud to be American citizens. Like you said, my father worked in a cotton mill.
Right.
And
who wouldn't be proud? Why is Trump always saying how terrible America is? I think it's great. I think it's doing really well.
And he ended up joining the service because he felt that this country was the best thing that happened to him,
Yeah, I understand.
What are you going to...
Well, thanks for the call, Donna.
Okay.
And
Okay.
phone lines are full, so I'm sorry, but we're going to have to move on. And let's move on to Mary. Hello, Mary. This is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hello, Leonard. I'm so happy to hear from you. I live in Minneapolis, and I just want to say that I am so disgusted with this administration and how they're treating people.
It's terrible,
Everyone
isn't it?
Equal. Everyone is equal, and people are suffering. And my daughter lives in South Minneapolis, and her whole community is Somalian. And these people are suffering. They're afraid to go out. They don't even want to go to the grocery store. And it just upsets me so much.
And you know what, Mary? Are they not just good, most of them, good family people who came here? They're trying to make a living. They're trying to raise their children. They're paying their mortgage or their rent. They're paying their car note every month. They're working hard. They have a legal right to be here because they're legally naturalized citizens. And then the president of our country not only sent people there to harass them, he announces that, well, I'm just going to find a way to unnaturalize them. How about that?
I know. I'm so ashamed of our administration. I mean, everyone wants to blame Biden and Obama, but stop blaming, stop shaming, and just get on with what's important.
Yeah, we
need our economy to be better.
Yes, I agree with you, and I don't know how we got to this point because you have to keep in mind that there's tens of millions of supporters of Trump and the shady MAGAs and their lifestyle and their beliefs. So the only thing we can do is we can try to rise up. Hopefully the independents will see it the same way as the Democrats, and in the midterms we can take the House and the Senate, and then from there it's still going to be a battle, but we'll be in better shape. Thank you for the call.
And I love Minneapolis.
Minneapolis is a great place. I've never been there, but I understand the people there are very down to earth and they're just terrific people. So it's just another way.
Baby, it's cold. Baby, it's cold outside.
I bet it's freezing out there. One of my sons lives in Wisconsin, and I think it was like 2 degrees. Or going to be 2 degrees today. That's cold. But thank you for the call, Mary.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Okay, have a good Christmas. Okay, moving on. What number are we going to? All right, let's go to 1. Let's go to Scott. Scott on line 1. This is Leonard. Scott, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How you been?
What's on your mind?
I think religion and nationalism actually go hand in hand. In the Greek, starting on day 1 of the New Testament, God said, "Go tell everybody that you're Christian." So the Greeks did it, the Romans did it, in the Crusades they did it.
But that wouldn't be nationalism, Scott, right?
Yeah, it would, because they're going say Britain goes into another country, and they say you got to be like us, and you got to have our religion, and you got to have our laws, and you got to have our even King James Bible. So I believe if it's not hand in hand, it comes right after nationalism. In this country, it's you got to be Christian like me, or you don't count.
Well, let me ask you something, Scott, because I really do. I have to be honest. I know the whole Bible, and I read it, and I hope I somewhat understand it, but I really prefer the New Testament to the Old Testament. But let me ask you this: how could a Christian belief be exclusive? In other words, if you're telling everyone around the world that this is the way you have to be, and it's not inclusive, and it doesn't accept other people for what they are, is Christian concept is to be inclusive, not to be exclusive. Am I correct?
Well, you are correct, but my issue with it is, if God told the truth, why is there 107 denominations of Christianity?
93 denominations of Islam, 6 denominations of Judaism. Then you have Buddhists and every other religion. So what's the truth? And the Bible is a very misogynistic book. After the only human ever born of a man was Eve, because she was made out of Adam's rib. After that, women had to go have babies in pain and go be in the home and obey the husband. And we don't do that anymore in our vows, but
right. So we evolved. We evolved from that.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Women,
my opinion,
back in the day, they weren't even allowed to vote.
No, on our side, women have evolved, but to the right wing, they should still stay at home and have babies but as humans, I question how much we've really evolved in the last 100 years. But
have you met anyone, Scott, in your life? Well, hold on. Let me ask you a question. Haven't you met anyone in your life that does random acts of kindness or shows compassion or feeds hungry people or helps out people in their family who are low income?
They do.
Okay, well,
I do. I have. I've also met a lot of people who treat people like
let's be a little more positive.
And,
you seem to be very negative today. Maybe you're having a bad day, but let's keep it a little more positive.
No, I'm having a great day, but no, let's keep it real and honest.
Okay, you can be positive and be real and honest. You don't have to be negative to be real and honest, okay?
No, but I have to be me. So my reality is one bad apple spoils the bunch. That's in the Bible too.
Yeah, I don't believe there's a connection between Christianism and nationalism that is applicable to the Bible, because if you're talking about nationalism, that's exclusive. That means you only care about your country, and you only care about the white nationalists, Republican, right-wing people, and everybody else is not included. And that doesn't sound biblical to me. That doesn't sound Christian to me.
When Britain went through Africa, it was about Britain. They didn't give a damn about those people except what they could do for them and the natural resources they could get out of that country. If you didn't pledge allegiance to Britain, if you were in India, you got dealt with. They sent British people to be their governors and their leaders. So it's always about the country that's doing
that
it.
Sounds
but
like
anyway,
that sounds like imperialism to me. That doesn't sound like nationalism.
And imperialism, but you have to have that that pride, that want of your country to go spread your country's values to other countries so they can have your values too.
Yeah, but that's geopolitics. That's not. Anyway, Scott, always good to get a call from you. Always interesting. I really appreciate it. And call back again soon. Let's go to Jason again. Jason called back. He must have something on his mind. Jason, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, Patrick, you're going to hell with gasoline drawers on, because God don't like liars. So here we go. Her name was Jocelyn, Barnica. She died from a miscarriage. The stillbirth fetus at 177 grams, about 17 weeks in the hospital, delayed intervention until the fetus's heartbeat was gone. And so, because the hospital refused to until the fetus heartbeat stopped, she had to wait 40 hours. 3 days later, when she died from infection, sepsis. So, Patrick, you're a liar. You're going to hell because God don't like liars. And she didn't die from a box abortion. You're a moron.
Well, Patrick was trying to be clever. He was trying to put a clever spin on his opinion, and myself and Brian, we can sniff those people out 100 miles away, and we just let them spew their inaccuracies. But thank you for clarifying and providing some factual information for us, Jason. We always appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, because I not only that, these are women's lives. This guy is a guy doesn't know anything about women's bodies and talking about a botched abortion. Women are out there right now dying in Texas because of this moron, and people like him. I digress.
Well, thank you for the call, Jason. It's always good to talk to you. Moving on, we're going to go to Cornell. Cornell, this is Leonard. What's on your mind? Oh, we may have. Okay, let's go to line 3. Line 3 is Ryan. Hi, Ryan. It's Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hi.
Hi, Leonard. What is on my mind is women earned the right to vote on August 18th, 1920. That was a Wednesday. And another thing that I want to mention is Trump's net worth. Trump's net worth is over $7,300,000,000 bucks.
7 billion what?
300,000,000 bucks.
What word? I can't understand the word. Box? Anyway,
I said Trump's net worth is over $7,300,000,000 bucks.
okay, well, on your first comment, I did say 1920, so that was accurate. And I feel that women should have been able to vote long before 1920, because if you're good enough to run the family, if you're good enough to raise the kids, if you're good enough to go to the store and buy ingredients and raise horses and do all the things that they did back in the West, then you know what? You get a vote. You get representation because you're helping the family earn money. You're responsible with your kids and your family. And so I'm surprised that it took as long as it did to get to 1920. But thank you for the call. Let's have Cornell. Cornell, I think we got cut off the first time. This is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hey, Leonard, how you doing today, buddy? It's
good. I'm
to
having
hear
fun.
You, man. Doing well. I just wanted to make a comment, Leonard, about. Like I said, I live in South Carolina, which of course is Trump country. So so I feel like my part-time job is like arguing with Trump supporters, mostly online. And one of the things that really bothers me, and I want all the MAGA people to hear this, is, I'm a Black American, Black citizen. I'm a Navy veteran. I always encounter them saying, get off of the Democratic plantation, and I think, like,
is that a racial slur?
Very much.
And by the way, thank you for your service, but go ahead.
Thank you, Leonard. But as soon as you bring in the word plantation, you are automatically making it racial.
Right, it's a trigger word. It's a buzzword.
Absolutely. But I just want them to know that when you say that, you're adding insult to injury by saying basically that, I'm still enslaving myself. I'm not even smart enough to know that I'm a slave. And consider the fact that, the voting Black majority are overwhelmingly Democrat. So to me, you're automatically saying most of the Black voters in America are stupid. We don't even know. We don't know how to make our own decisions. We're just, being led or still enslaved by the Democrats. And I'm so sick of them bringing up, the Democrats and the KKK. Yeah, okay. And
let me ask you something, Cornell. Do you think that racism in the last few years under the Trump administration has become increased and sharper?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. He has emboldened racists, particularly by reminding America, listen, you have a right to say whatever you want to say, whether that's offensive to other people or not, whether it's, something.
Well, they're race baiting, not to interrupt you, Cornell, but they're race baiting. That's exactly what they're doing. They're throwing out comments that they know are going to upset you, like plantation and things like that. And they're trying to let you know. And, like I said last week, I can't imagine what it's like to be hated for the color of your skin. You can't do anything about the color of your skin. You can't do anything about the culture you follow because you were raised with that culture since you were a child. And for people to hate you for that, for something you can't do anything about, I think is just it's just a terrible convolution of what we were really supposed to be in America.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think that I'm not going to lie. I've talked to a guy who even educated me once, and I'm not going to lie, he was very outright, white racist supremacist. And I talk to everyone. I'm a mental health therapist, by the way. So, I like to understand other people's point of view. And basically he explained to me that if you think about America and how the system was founded in America, particularly slavery, it was meant, it was always slavery, of course, before America, nothing new. But what was new about America is the idea of perpetuality. That, you know, not only are you my slave, but your child's my slave, and your child. So there was always this notion that America should have always been run with the, you know,
generation
supremacy
after
of
generation
white at the top and everybody else at the bottom, right? And we've come so far from that in a white supremacist mind, this country is absolutely crazy. Like, we've had a black president that was never supposed to happen. It was always supposed to be a system of white dominance and white people in power and black people knowing
and they're mad now, right, Cornell? And now they're mad because we broke the glass ceiling, and now they're pissed.
We're so far from that, and that's why, you know, that's where that furiousness is coming from. You know, on some level, and it's so many people that's what scares me, to think that there are millions of people in America in 2025
just
that
like that
still feel that way on some level.
It's terrible. But thank you for the call. I'm going to cut you a little bit short, Cornell, because we have a lot of callers I'm trying to get to, and always a good call. Thank you. Let's go to Paul. Hello, Paul. This is Leonard. What's on your mind? Okay, we're going to go to Darlene. Darlene, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hey, Leonard. You know you're my favorite host today.
You're my favorite Maga destroyer.
That's right, and I'm ready to destroy. First of all, Patrick. Listen here. Did your mom drop you on your head when you were a baby? Because you have no respect. And the next time you call in to talk to Leonard, be respectful, shut your mouth and listen. Because you just kept interrupting, and it's rude. And second of all, I am so sick of these MAGAs acting like they give a damn about human life. They're like, oh, all these abortions, we're killing babies. Everybody has a different situation. And if you're so damn worried about human life, why do y'all support a president that is blowing up boats that you don't even know who's on there killing people?
And what about supporting a president that takes food out of the mouth of children? What about that?
I know. How many of y'all MAGAs out there have put a check or your card, whatever, in the mail and helped babies anywhere?
Well, they don't even like to talk about that. All they care about is the birth of the child. After that, they could go hungry. They could be thrown out into the world. They could come from a poor family and get no help. They get no Medicare, no Medicaid coverage, no WIC program, no SNAP program, because they want to. You know what Trump offered, Darlene? Trump offered to give all children, all newborns, money in a 401k. So is that not someone trying to create an investor society? Are they not trying to perpetuate investment instead of giving that child the food and the care that it needs? Which is worse? They're trying to create an investor society, in my opinion.
You know what, Leonard? Donald Trump, at that stupid get-together he had the other night at the Kennedy Center, did you hear what he said? He was talking, and he said, the Trump Kennedy Center. And then he goes, oops, like he didn't mean to say that.
Oh, he meant, everyone thinks that was an intentional gaffe.
Trump, you're a disgrace to everybody. And another thing, Trump, Zelensky is more of a leader and man than you would ever be. And I'm serious. It's ridiculous. And Leonard, I love you, but one more thing before I go. Dave Wayne, the one that called in a while ago and he was in the chat, he loves to talk about me in the chat. Well, I got news for you, Dave Wayne. Wayne, you can kiss my ASS. And you can have a good day.
Well, you know what, Darlene? Some people in the chat room just, they're keyboard cowards, and they mostly, from what I watch, they mostly pick on the women. They mostly try to make negative comments and terrible comments. And so I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they just need a hug, or they need some psychological release by, abusing people or saying nasty things. But don't you worry about it, because everybody in the PTL Nation loves you, and they like hearing from you. So thanks for the call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's go to Steve. Steve, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Leonard.
I have a couple things. One is, when I talk to people and they say, "Oh, these damn people coming from south of the border, and they should do things the legal way," and I'll ask them, "Did your parents come from Europe, and were they citizens before they came over?" Well, they did things the legal way. Also, when they went to court, were they dragged out and deported, or were they allowed to go through the process? Oh, well, they just did things the right way.
So they had an
Anyway.
opportunity to do it the legal way, which today they do not.
Correct. Yeah, they're being pulled out of courtrooms and courthouses, and they're deported.
Well, they had a judge, I think it was on MSNBC, who admitted that he was instructed to cancel cases. So people
Right.
that are seeking asylum or they're refugees and they have a court case and they're trying to do it the right way, they show up at the courthouse and their case is canceled. And guess who's waiting in the lobby for them? ICE.
Exactly.
So the ICE agents are waiting there. They take them into custody and they get no due process. I totally disagree with that.
Okay, I have one more thing. I have 5 daughters, and they all work because, I'm in my 70s, and when I was growing up, women did stay at home most of the time, but wages became stagnant, and you need 2 incomes to make a living now. So the women have to
I would
work.
agree with that. But if staying at home, and let me ask you about this, if staying home was the culture at the time, and that was acceptable, and that's what a woman wanted to do because she believed in it and she believed it was the right way, does that make it any less different today? If they want to do that, that's fine. But what I was bringing up is there was a time when they had no other choice. The men would get hired for the best jobs. Women were not hired for the best jobs. They did help in 1940s. They helped make bombs and they helped make weapons, and they were a big, huge help. But a lot of times back then, they stayed home because that's how they were raised. That's all they understood. And there were no opportunities. And that's what I disagree with. But today, you have Mike Johnson in 2025. It's almost 2026. He's a Speaker of the House, and he refuses to put women as the chair of certain committees. I think that's terrible.
Oh, he's no Christian.
That's just
he's a phony.
Okay, well, thank you for the call, Steve. That was a good phone call, and we're going to move on to Paul from the UK. I'm being told UK, Paul. What's on your mind, Paul?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, good.
It came to me. I was listening to a couple of conversations with the association with Sharia law, which they're comparing to Mike Johnson's philosophy. And it all came to me when I'm Jewish. I'm not religious, but I understand Jewish law, which always, by the way, it defers to the law of the country as it happens. Even the Hasidic Jews defer to the law of the country. But what interests me about this charitable, what my connection I made is I think, why are Republicans like Mike Johnson so obsessed about abortion, about a woman's rights? And it occurs to me, when a woman is pregnant, it's the greatest control a man can exert over his spouse, or any woman for that matter, is to have her pregnant and remain pregnant. And it occurs to me that kind of lateral connection to make between Sharia law, the elements of it which subjugate women, and now Christian law, extreme Christian law, which insists on a woman staying pregnant, whatever the circumstances, and thus to keep her subjugated. Because while they're pregnant, they're very dependent on their partner and in a very weakened position. And it occurs to me that's where the root cause comes from. When a woman's allowed to control her body, the man can't control her. When she's pregnant, the man's in control. That's my theory.
Well, I kind of understand what you're saying, making sure they're always pregnant. So they always have to take care of the child, and then they start having children. They have to take care of the children they have, and they're pregnant at the same time. But let's not discount and let's look at the other side of the coin, because I'm kind of an other side of the coin kind of guy. There's many women who want to be pregnant, who want to have children, who want to grow a family. So there's also that factor. Is there more control? I guess there's an argument saying that they're limited because after about 6 months, they really can't work. They have to leave their job, usually, or maybe even some work to the last month. But let's not discount the fact that there's a lot of women out there who become pregnant and have children of their own volition. But like you said, with Maga Mike Johnson, it probably is more about control than what the woman wants. And by the way, I think that he's a very insecure person. I don't know what happened to him when he was younger. I know he had a pact with his son, some kind of porn pact where they would watch each other's what they were doing on pornographic sites. But let me ask you, Paul, who does that? What kind of person has it with a teenager son has a porn pact? Who does that?
No, I'll bounce it back to you. Who admits to it? Who does it is weird enough, but who admits to it on a public stage?
He described it in detail. He said, and I watch him to make sure he doesn't go too far.
And it's adopted son, I think. Yeah, I'm proud of the poor. I mean, apparently when he goes to speak to Trump, the alarm's going off non-stop with his son.
I have 3 sons, and I can tell you,
all the time.
I would never have that talk with I have 3 sons. And it never even occurred to me to, when they're little, you have the birds and the bees talk with them, and you answer questions as they grow. But to have is Mike Johnson and his son watching so much porn that they have to monitor it for weirdness and for debauchery?
Why does he need it? Can't he control himself? I would say to Mike Johnson, listen, mate, don't usually involve your son. Just don't do it so much. It's easy.
I think that was very strange, and I couldn't believe that he actually talked about it openly. And to be honest with you, my impression was that there's some kind of, I don't know what's going on in his mind, but some kind of strange perversion.
I think honestly, if you were in England and you admitted that, the police would be knocking on your door the next day. Seriously. It's not right. It's creepy.
But what do they say? Like, if they find something that's so repulsive that you have to talk to someone about it, like what are they actually watching that is so repulsive that they have to go, hey, you went a little too far with that one?
What happens at 3 a.m. when old Mikey gets the call? Dad, you're at it again. Dad, lay off that side.
I was watching the porn that you were watching, Dad, and I think what you're watching has gone too far. Like, what are they watching that goes too far?
Yes, Dad. Do not watch it. It's sick, Dad. You're sick watching that. Stop watching it. This is the 3rd time I've called you in the last hour, Dad. Now stop it.
Yeah, I mean, how do you even do that? But Paul, thanks for the call. Always a good call with you. We really appreciate it, especially calling from the UK. And by the way, didn't Stammer say that he's standing behind Zelensky? Didn't he announce that? I think.
I haven't been in touch with the news today because I've been working hard, but I'll check up these. I bloody hope so.
Okay, Paul.
And by the way, while you're on the line, there isn't anybody in the football community who wants Trump to have a peace prize from FIFA. Just so you know.
Oh, come on. That was made up. FIFA never had a peace prize. And by the way, there were no other contestants. There was no board of directors. There was no votes, no decision making. So there was no competition.
No. And let me tell you, Len, while you're on, in 2 years' time when we have the European Championships come on, it's World Cup, when we have the Euros in 2 years, there'll be no peace prize. That's the last time anybody gets that peace prize. First and last.
Really? Well,
of course it is. It's ridiculous. They invented it for Trump. Nobody would accept. Why would you accept it from FIFA? You might as well accept it from bloody NATO.
Paul, he put his own medal on.
I mean,
he walked out, and instead of waiting for them to put the medal on him, he walked up and picked up the medal off the table and put it on.
And he's so proud. And he doesn't know the whole world is laughing at him. He's so proud of it. He really thinks it means something. This is the guy who's sinking boats in international waters, is attacking U.S. cities, has threatened Canada, has threatened Greenland, has threatened Panama, wants to go to war with Venezuela, and he says he needs a peace prize.
Yeah, I think, do you think, let me ask you this, because I've talked to several people who think that it has something to do with Obama, because he hates Obama so much, and obviously Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize, that he hates him so much that he couldn't stand the fact that he didn't have a peace prize and Obama did. You think that has anything to do with it?
I think it's 100%. I think Obama really tripped his wire when he roasted him in that press thing. I think that was the thing that really got him up against Obama, and also the fact that Obama is better than him on every front. He's fitter than him, better looking than him, more intelligent than him, has got a more loving family than him. He's everything better than him. It drives him nuts.
Yeah, you could see him. You're talking about the special where the news comes together and has a little comedy and makes fun of the president and former presidents. And when Obama was speaking, his face didn't move. He looked so angry. Like he glared directly at Obama the whole time and didn't crack a smile or anything.
It was brilliant. And I think that really got him, because he bears a grudge forever, this guy. That's what his dad taught him.
Well, it could be the size of Trump's hands. He's got those little sausage fingers. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
That was funny when Obama mocked him, about just during the last election when he did the hand thing. Obama did it. He's obsessed. Obama said he's obsessed with size. Why is he obsessed with size?
I don't know. It seems to be something that really bothers him. Maybe Stormy Daniels will write a book someday, and we can find out the real deal. As Brian always says, Trump only lasted 13 seconds.
Yeah, well, you've got to have Stormy on the show. I can't remember. I think Brian had her once on before. I can't remember. But she's fearless. She is such an impressive woman. When I heard, I can't remember who interviewed her, but she's very impressive. She's smart and she's fearless. She's not scared of anything, and she says it like it is. And I remember after the rumours about Trump's manhood came out, he was on doing a rally, and he had to refute it. What sort of idiot refutes it? He had to say, "Don't worry about me. I'm all right down there." I thought, why would you say that?
Yeah, I was with a porn star, but it's not what you think.
He's such a moron.
Yeah, and his poor wife. She was pregnant at the time, was she not?
Yeah, she was. She was nursing Barron. I think you'll find she was nursing him while he was off with. I believe. I think I'm right on that one. I think she was nursing him while he was off doing his indescribable act.
Yeah, it was. He completely embarrassed the entire family with that, and we're gonna stay on it, Paul. We're gonna stay on the politics of all of this. We're gonna make sure that the Epstein case is not forgotten about. We'll make sure that people don't need to be reminded of the economy and the affordability crisis. Are you guys having an affordability crisis in UK as well?
Things are more expensive, but it's not a crisis, no. And contrary to the belief, sometimes the attacks I get from Magas on like on Blue Sky and things, we haven't got people running around with knives all over the place, and we are not ruled by Sharia law. I can never be a cop in. I can never be a cop in the UK because they don't carry guns, right? No, only in airports. In airports, you get armed police, obviously.
So if somebody's running around on the street with a gun, shooting at people, what do they do? Call for a gun?
Well, you can. If there's a risk of, if there's an incident where there's a possibility of the crooks being armed, the police will call out an armed unit. But the police do not generally wear arms. But what you don't realise is, I have never seen a gun.
Really?
You
never handled one? You never shot a gun? Nothing?
Never. I'm quite interested in doing, actually. I'd quite like to do it. I'd be curious. Like to do, harmless shooting and target practice. But not a real gun. Look at the fair, it doesn't count. But I've never seen a gun in the street. I'm not saying criminals don't get hold of them. They do. But one of our worst cases, if you look up a drama, it's called Little Boy Blue. It was about this young kid who got accidentally shot in a gang fight. He was completely innocent. And he was 11 years old. And this happened decades ago, by the way. And it was an old gun, like an ancient pistol. It wasn't like a sophisticated weapon that you're used to. It's just an ancient pistol they got from somewhere or other. It's much more difficult to get guns in England, especially handguns. But it's not impossible, of course, if you know the right people. But I've never seen an incident with a gun in the street. And I don't know anybody who got attacked by a knife.
Wow.
And so it might be contrary to what you've been told.
All right, Paul. Well, we're coming up on the on the end of a show. That 2 hours went by quick, I think. And always a good
great
call
show.
with
You
you,
do a
Paul.
great show, by the way. Yeah, lovely. Thanks for taking the call.
All right, Paul. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again. All right. Like I said, for those of you who are watching and wondering where Brian is, he was called last minute to participate in a charity golf tournament today. So he asked me if I could fill in for him real quickly. And thank you to Brian for having me. Brian will be back in studio tomorrow by himself. I think I will be here Wednesday co-hosting with Brian, and I'm sure he will bring you up to date on what we're planning to do the rest of the week. And thank you for calling in. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon. Have a good day.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie?